That looks better. I hope that helps. Shut that little screen off so then we don't end up with vertigo and dizziness and all that fun stuff from watching that. So thank you for letting me know about that. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Happy Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Fantastic week to talk about gratitude. Isn't that what everybody's talking about? But we're going to talk about it a little bit different. I looked through your forms. Thank you for those. Thank you always for those. It's always exciting for me. And we have so much to unpack. So I'm very excited. We are going to do some kind of deeper dive into your session A4 on image writing, because we're going to talk more about manifesting and the art of surrendering in your manifestation. And there were actually quite a few comments in your forms from multiple people about people pleasing. So we're going to dive into some insight on people pleasing. Okay, so let me get up the forms. We're going to go right away into the celebrations. Start our day off right. Celebrations so far, what's going well this week. And remember too, for those of you that are currently working through your sessions, take your strategies, take your protocol, and when you're looking at what is going well, take your strategies that you actually wrote with your coach and look at how well are you doing those? What is going well about doing those? If one of your strategies was, I'm going to remember to eat breakfast every day, how well are you doing that? So this is perfect for being able to focus positively on what's just going well in your week, but it's also a way that you're progressing towards your goals. So make sure that you're using it for that as well. Okay. Positive, happy things. What's going well? I've gotten a lot done for house and yard work. Yes, you've got a big thing going on. Got a good move and a possible sale coming up. There is going to be a ton of work that's going with that. Yes. Having more energy to play with my granddaughter. Fantastic. Sleeping 2 nights in a row without waking up. Absolutely. Remembering to take my supplements. Awesome. I know that's been a struggle and a challenge, and probably for many of you. And you can rest assured, I don't like to get people stuck in and secure in supplements. It's a bridge. I want you to be able to get what you're needing and then get it through your food and lifestyle. Feelings of sadness are much better. For you, Mr. Client that wrote that, I want you to be aware that that comment is really common, the feelings of sadness. So that's such a common emotion to be going through. You're going to have anger, you're going to have sadness, you're going to have despair, you're going to have just feeling like you're just going crazy sometimes. And that's the calm before, or the storm before the calm, I guess I would say. Chaos always precedes clarity. Did you say that right? Chaos always comes first, clarity always comes second. So don't look at it as, the sadness that I feel or the chaos that I feel or the depression that I feel is a bad thing. Usually we feel our lowest right before a corner is turned, right before a turnover in our lives. So usually those big intense emotions are just signaling a transformation. So maybe just look at it that way. And I'm glad that those feelings are feeling better for you. Don't feel like you have to be positive and happy all the time. Why do we have to do that? We don't have to feel just positive and go lucky and happy all the time. It's okay to just be. It's okay to just be and not judge it. Remember that your tools are there for you to be aware of. It's like the dashboard light that the gas is running low in your car. It's just saying, hey, just checking in with you. Didn't know if you noticed, but you're feeling kind of sad. Is there something we can learn from this? That's what the emotion as a tool is meant to be doing. We do not have to deny our emotions, but we certainly don't have to let them rule us either. Use them as a tool. Okay, what has been challenging? Sleeping. When you have a lot going on, having uninterrupted sleep is going to be an issue. Of course, for this Miss Client that wrote this, you have a new diagnosis with some sleep apnea. That's going to have some different things to go along with it. So we'll see what strategies they gave you, and we'll get you some strategies too next time we see you. One client in particular, we have in our group, we have 4 people that are currently on the SCD diet. And one of you voiced up and said, struggling to plan a Thanksgiving gathering with my children that will please everyone. And worried in the end that I won't please anyone. Also trying to figure out a menu with my SCD diet. So that's part of, let's unpack the easy part first. So I am going to put in the, I'll put a link in your group program. So if you go to your dashboard and you go to your programs, you're going to see your RAB program, but then you'll see your group program. And in that group program, it's going to be the resources shared. I'm going to put one of my favorite resources for Thanksgiving meal. And honestly, you wouldn't even have to make a separate meal for everybody else. It is that delicious. So I think her website is Comfy Belly. That's kind of her kind of moniker with that. So anybody who's not on the SC diet can certainly go and utilize these recipes. SCD just means simple carbohydrate diet. So it's a specific type of carbohydrate that we're getting our energy from. And it's grain-free. A big part of it is it's grain-free. So these recipes are grain-free and dairy-free, and they taste fantastic. So if you're worried about having a meal planned and that everyone will like, got you covered. So I'm going to put that in the resources chapter. Okay, we're going to come back to the people pleasing because like I said, we've had multiple forms come in about people pleasing, and there is a lot to learn from that. So you didn't even realize when you wrote that you were asking for help with the Thanksgiving menu. And well, I'm not even asking for help. You just said it's been a challenge. Well, I'm giving you the help, so hopefully it's helpful. You didn't even realize that. You were just saying it was a challenge finding meals and what you were going to do for Thanksgiving. But you said pleasing everyone a couple times. So we're gonna take a look at that. Vertigo symptoms. I can report that from a clinical perspective, vertigo symptoms have been part and parcel to the cold and flu that is being passed around. Always get your vertigo symptoms checked out, of course, but that is what I'm seeing very, very commonly. It is lasting 2 weeks, it's lasting 4 weeks for people. We do have a vertigo exercise. You can, next time you're in the office, just ask Morgan or Gina to teach you that. And they can teach you an exercise that helps to kind of reset that neurological alignment. It really does help. So if you're having trouble with that, definitely ask Gina or Morgan and they can show you our little trick there. And it's a, you know what? It's a dizzying time in life too. So relate your symptoms to what's going on in life. And for this Miss Client that wrote this, I know life is very dizzying for you right now. And so this is your time to get cued into your body, asking you to stand still. And it might take, just a few minutes a day where you're just standing still. If you can't close your eyes, that's fine. Keep them open, but stand still and look around at your life and ask where all the pieces are flying. What pieces you can calm down, what pieces you need to let go and set down, what you can get help with, what is your responsibility, what is not your responsibility. It might just be some time to take accounting of your life because it feels like everything's out of control right now. We also have Danielle or Jess can help you get a supplement. It's a little dropper bottle called Dizzy, aptly named. So we have that in the store also. Okay, needing help this week. I have some very specific questions, so I'll answer those and then we'll get into the training for this week. Let's see, the specific question is asking for my brother. Do I work with neuropathy patients? He is getting worse. His doctor, daughter, and son-in-law told him last week there isn't much to do for it other than to maintain where it's at with drugs. Absolutely not. I would say anytime you come up against anything that has limits, and especially when they say the only thing you can do is blah, 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 that to me is, I'd like to challenge that because we're not God. We don't know the limits of the body, and the body has a symptom and it is still trying to teach us something. So if it's trying to teach us something, I'm not going to just cut it off and say, oh, let's just give you some meds for the symptom. I would say, why is it still happening? What do we want to look deeper at? There are some fantastic studies out there about low-level light, cold laser therapy, red light therapy, infrared therapy for neuropathy. Vibration therapy alone is known to help to reduce the incidence and occurrence of neuropathy, the effects of it. So there's all kinds of things that you could still employ. Worst case scenario, he's not going to be worse off. So I never say we don't treat anything. So no matter what the diagnosis name is, we don't treat anything. But if the body is having a symptom, it is meaning that it is imbalanced. It is off track. It is not functional. It is not innately optimized. And so our goal is to get that back on track and watch what falls away and watch what doesn't. So if he's open to it, have him send in a cell sample. That would be easy way to get started. Question from last week about when we were talking about the ashwagandha. Should I be taking it with when you're taking levothyroxine? In your particular case, yes, it is safe for you to be taking that. It is largely cautionary because thyroid can go hypo and it can go hyper. And when it's in a chronic hyper state, ashwagandha can accelerate that. And so I know that there are lots of doctors that if they use herbs, they'll use ashwagandha even with thyroid, but the whole body is looked at that point. So if we know that somebody is hypo, we don't worry about them using ashwagandha. In your case, I know your body very well. We know the context of the whole. So that's a good question. I'm glad you asked it. I would feel safe in using that. So, okay. And I love this statement here. Realizing it doesn't have to be perfect to be good. I love this. And this is a really nice segue and tie into some of the training that we're going to do today. So let's start with the idea of people pleasing, because as you know, when you come into sessions, especially with me and largely with your coaches, we are taking note of the words that you're saying and the phrases that you're using. I'm scribbling on my little paper and you're seeing me scribble, and I'm boxing out things. I box out what's called concepts. So if you're saying something like in this comment that we mentioned previously, I don't know what to cook for Thanksgiving. I don't think I'll be able to please anybody. I'm boxing that out. I'm writing that down and I'm putting a big box around it because we need to unbox that. We need to unpack that. That is a concept that I want to make sure we're addressing at some point. So as you're speaking, I've been trained in concept awareness and concept therapy. And so I am recording these limiting beliefs and things that you don't even realize that you're saying. And we tie those in to your time with us here. And we tie them in as they come up so that we can help you unbox some of those deep-rooted concepts. Largely, those concepts will come down to some common core roots. And so people pleasing is actually a very root limiting belief. It is a very root or concept, and we don't even realize how much it influences our decision making in so many things in our life. And it's happening subconsciously because our concepts and limiting beliefs are programmed internally in the subconscious. We're not consciously thinking about them. We're not consciously thinking, how can I people please today? How can I make this person happy today? But we're consciously doing it because that was how we were trained. So people pleasing is one of the common core concepts. Limiting the self is a common core concept. Low value, low self-worth, fear. Those are all really common core concepts. So we end up having to work with the concept of people pleasing pretty frequently. This can happen for anybody of any gender. And it has in the past trended towards women. It has in the past trended towards those upward of 35 years old because there was so much generational training about, be quiet, let the adults talk, sit still, do things that make everybody else happy. There was so much generational training at that time of life. So that's part of it. And then we have gauged our safety. We have gauged what's right and wrong based on what we're picking up from people. So we knew very well what we were doing right because we'd get smiles of approval and nods and pats on the head. And we could tell by the countenance of the person that we were in front of what we did was good or bad. And so we did not learn how to listen to our inner guidance. We learned to take our cues from everybody else that what we were doing was good, bad, right, wrong, ugly, beautiful. We learned from everybody else that their opinionation of us, their evaluation of us was what was important. And we were never trained to listen to this inner self, this higher self. And so that can be a challenge to train that, but it's just a habit. Remember, you learned it, you accepted it as a concept deep subconsciously. Now you're practicing it. It's just a habit. You're not even realizing it's a habit. But now that you're aware of it, you can pull that out. Now, just because you've decided to stop taking your cues from everybody else and you've started listening to your inner truth, doesn't mean that you're not going to please people anymore. It just means that you're consciously making the decision of what you're engaging in and what you're not. So a few things that I want that how do we, that's honestly, that's the biggest thing, that is awareness, just awareness of that limiting concept, awareness of that, the social cues. I know a lot of us judge our safety based on how people are responding to us. And I do think that there is, so social awareness is good, but I do think that there is such a thing, we're going to coin the term right now called toxic social awareness. I do think there is such a thing called toxic social awareness, where you don't know how to be safe or what your emotions should be, because you're basing them on your response to how everybody else is behaving, how they're acting, how they're responding. And I know I've been there multiple times. And so trusting yourself and having confidence in yourself enough to listen to that higher self it's a challenge to change that habit, but awareness is the key thing with that. The second thing I want you to think of is, so, okay, I'm going to write these down so we can have them for future. First thing is awareness of it. Honestly, you don't even have to do years and years of work. Once you're aware of something, you're going to be aware of it. You're going to, other clues and other information is going to be brought up to you about that. Okay. Second thing then, every response had a reason. So you're people pleasing and you're doing it for a reason. So every action that you do in life, there's a reason behind it. And instead of judging the action, we want to understand why you did that. So sometimes the awareness is enough and you're just like, wow, I'm not going to do that again. And that was all it took. But there's some deeper learning that you can have here if you, the biggest thing, so Miss Client that wrote this particular Thanksgiving one, excuse me, you're trying to please everybody in the meal prepared. And that's not a bad thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. That's a good character trait. But I would ask, why? Where does that come from? I would ask, who are you trying to please? I would ask, what would happen if they're not pleased? I would ask, I would get curious. I would get curious where that came from. Every response has a reason behind it. And if you can look at any of your actions, whether it's people pleasing or anything else, you can look at every one of your responses and identify that there was a reason that you are doing that. People tend to run towards pleasure and away from pain. And we don't want to be, we don't want to be wrong, and we want to be accepted. Everybody has an innate desire to be accepted, to know that they're significant. That's why one of the tenets that EMC is we can't heal unless we believe that we're significant and capable. So what somebody else, and we can tell you this a million times, what somebody else wants is not more important than what you want. However, the fact that you've adopted that concept is very interesting, because it's very low value and it's very devaluing of yourself. And so that's definitely a concept to unpack. You might want to do a new cog on that. New cog with the topic being people pleasing, or others have more value than I do. Might have some good new cog topics for you there. Let's see. Being able to live and function in this world while still being very cohesive is a trick, because you don't necessarily need to be off-putting with how you behave, act, and respond. But to learn to do that from that truthful place within and from listening to your higher self can really be a challenge, because you weren't trained to do that. You were trained to listen to mom and dad and authority figures. But this is going to segue into why we do an image. So the core components that make up your RAB program are things that I have used over 18 years. And I've tried a bunch of stuff and I threw out the ones that didn't work, and I kept in the ones that consistently worked. So the first core competency that you learn is food functions, because first of all, we've got to get you control over your body. And largely that's nutrients in, waste out. How are we helping that happen? So in your session A3, you learn about food functions and you start to get some control and some management over your body. That's why we have the panels, the cell panels that let us know what your body is doing with food, so that we know how to tailor that food function specifically to what you need. in A4, the second coaching session, includes writing your image. We have got to get your nervous system and your cells in blueprint. And that blueprint has to contain the picture that you see. And so right now, you can easily define your picture. You're like, I'm sad, I'm moody, I don't feel good. My back aches, my knee aches, I have eczema, I can't sleep at night, I'm tired all the time. You know very, very well your picture right now. And you largely don't want it, or you wouldn't be here. So if you know what you don't want, you do know what you do want, even if you can't pinpoint it out. It's so hard for people to give themselves the permission to be unapologetic and create a new picture and ask for what they want. They really don't know what they want. But if you know what you don't want, that's a start. And you can start with one or two things. So you're writing a new image and you can say, you know, I am happy and healthy. I love my life. I live my life with passion and purpose. My job looks like this. I do something that I love. And you can get as specific as you want. I get up at 6 a.m. because I love that. And I get to watch the sunrise, and I work from 8 to 2 because that's what I chose and that's what I love. And you can get very detailed about it once you're starting to get more and more clear about what you do actually want. That image should be used frequently. That image should be referred back to all the time. I often tell people, make a copy, tuck it in your pocket, make a copy, put it on your mirror. And the first part of it is detailing your image. What is it that you want? And this should be a living document that you're changing and you're adding to all the time. You do not have to decide how this is going to happen. You just have to know what you want. If I know that I want to take a trip every year and it's going to cost me $5,000 to take my whole family and go on a trip once a year, I'm going to include that in my image. And I'm going to get detailed if I can see it very clearly. And the middle section, I call it the naysayer section, because we have to plan for that. We have to know that somebody is going to give us the look of disapproval, or somebody is going to make a comment that's going to make us be challenged about our image. And then we're going to go back to what we've known, and we're going to kind of waver and people please again because we got the look, we got the cue that what we did was not acceptable in their eyes. And so you have to plan ahead. So your naysayer section is, I know that so-and-so is going to be in my head yelling at me. What am I going to do? What am I going to say? How am I going to plan for this? And it might be a mantra, it might be a phrase that you're going to tell yourself. It might be an action that you're going to do. But what are you going to do? Knowing that these things are going to challenge you to stick with your image. What are you going to do when those challenges come up so that you can stay in alignment? And then the third section is, how do I live now from this image? You live from this image right now. You don't have to wait for it to manifest in a year or 5 years or 3 months or whatever it is. You start living that now. So if somebody is saying, you know what, the biggest thing that I want to change is my emotions. I don't like how I've been feeling. I don't like feeling like my sadness has been in control of my life. My image might be, I live a good life. I feel largely content and happy and satisfied with my life. Now, in that third section where it says, how are you going to live in accordance with this image? For example, if somebody comes and says, hey, good morning, how was your morning? How's your day going? You're not going to say well, you know, you're going to live from this person that lives a happy, satisfied, mostly great life. You're going to have emotions that go through your life, but right now you're trying to change a habit. So you're not denying, you're not lying. You're just thinking, if this is my image and this is the person that I see myself to be, and I want that for my life, I'm gonna have to start living that now. And so even if I don't feel happy and satisfied and content, I look for the thing that I am happy, satisfied, content with. And I'm like, you know what, my hair turned out really good today. It was a good morning. Okay, so you just start shifting how you're thinking, acting, and talking, so that you are more in alignment with this image that you say that you want. Now, this should be a living document, like I said. So you can go back and change it. You can cross it off. You can get more specific. You can continue to develop and create this image. We talked last week about surrendered manifestation. So once you have your image, you just know what you want and you live from that image. You don't necessarily have to define the how. You don't have to define the how. You just think, a person that has this image, what do they live like? What do they look like? And start being that. I like to call it, sometimes an image might sound confusing. It's definitely not a goal, it's an action. But sometimes just call it a picture. What is the picture? If I see the picture now of my life very clearly, what is the picture that I want to see instead? And that might make more sense in your head so that you can start developing what this picture looks like. And you can see yourself on the beach, on your trip, taking your vacation with your family all around. You can see the clothes you're wearing. You can see the food you're eating. If that helps to think of it that way, image, picture, same thing. But then what you should be doing, it's kind of like the protocol that you have from me. That's our action plan. And the image that you create in A4, that's what you should be going back to. How am I doing today? How am I doing this week? How am I doing with my protocol that was planned for me? How am I doing with my image? What went well with my image? What did I have a challenge with? So that you can correct that and break that habit of people pleasing right now. You can get that inner guidance from what you have put into place, from the blueprint that you have created, from the picture that you have decided on. Gratitude is, because it's Thanksgiving week, we got to throw that in, but gratitude is the way that you surrender. So you can be grateful for what you currently have while looking with excitement towards what's coming. And so when you're in, even I've probably shared this before, but if I haven't shared it, I'm not apologetic to admit when I was at my worst and I was at my worst health and I was in that wheelchair and I just couldn't, people couldn't even hug me. I mean, I could not participate in life in any way. It was very hard to have gratitude. I will not lie. But I knew I wasn't going to get out of that hole by just getting more and more bitter about it. So gratitude does not have to be big, crazy, amazing things. It literally can be, I am grateful today that I am breathing. I am grateful today that my hair didn't fall out. I am grateful today that I have clothes on my body. I am grateful today that I really like that color. It sounds dumb, but it might be, but you can only think of 1, 2, or 3 things. But start a gratitude journal so that you can be aware and thankful of you're a good steward of what you have right now and you're grateful for it. And that's the key to start manifesting this image, this picture of what you do want, because now what you're looking for is you're looking at your picture. You're grateful for what you currently have, but you're looking at your picture and you're watching how it's developing. And so you're saying, wow, I'm really grateful I was able to put $100 away towards my trip. I'm really grateful that I was able to buy that swimsuit that I got for my trip. I'm really grateful. I can see this happening. I can see how I'm talking to people. I can see how people are addressing me. I can see this happening. And so you start writing down through gratitude the things that you're seeing in which your picture is coming to fruition. And I'm going to give another thought for you. Everything that you have created, everything that is currently in your existence has come because that's the level of standard that you had set. So it's time to raise your minimum standard. And I'll let you ponder on this thought. You get what you tolerate. So what you have currently in front of you, the amount that you make, the house that you have, that's because you're willing to tolerate that. That's the minimum standard that you had set for yourself. So if you want things to change and you want to move towards this image, you're going to have to raise your level of tolerance. You're going to have to set a new minimum standard. So think about that when you're writing your new picture. If you're saying, I want to be wealthier, if that's, you know that what you want is you don't want to be in the current financial state that you're in. And you can get very clear, you know what, I want $1,000 a week. I'm so happy and grateful that I have $1,000 a week. You're going to have to set your standard. If that's what you're currently doing, your minimum standard has to change. If you want more, you're going to have to set a new standard. You know what? The new low level that I will tolerate is $1,500 a week. That's my new standard. Sorry about that. When it comes to health, it feels a little bit more ambiguous, but it's largely the same. So if you don't want to be sick anymore and you don't want to have symptoms anymore and you don't want to have, the racing heart anymore, how do you set a new standard and say, well, I just won't tolerate a racing heart anymore? It doesn't really work that way, but you can set a new standard for what you are doing to work proactively towards that. So again, your image is like, I can see myself running. I can see my heart working perfectly in rhythm. I can see myself not going to the ER. Instead, this is what I'm doing. I can see myself having activity and playing volleyball and what are all the specific things that you're able to do when you don't have this racing heart problem, when you don't have this sadness problem, when you don't have the eczema problem. You're going to envision what that looks like. I envision rings on my fingers, and I envision not having to slather lotion on all the time, and I envision getting to use the shampoo that I want and not have to worry about psoriasis on the scalp. You're picturing, what does life look like without this symptom? And then you're grateful that you're alive and your body's working through this symptom. And then you're keeping this picture in your head. And then you're watching every day and every week for how it's becoming that, how it's getting closer and closer to that. So even though it feels a little bit more ambiguous with health, it feels largely out of your control. There is so much that you are in control of. And it starts with, I've always said, your food and your concepts are the toolkits that are in your pocket right now, because you can do it every day. You're eating multiple times a day. So if you're putting good things in and the triggering things out, waste, toxic stuff that is not helpful for you, taking that out, you've already up-leveled your standard. Even if you don't see the symptom change right now, you've already started to do the things that get you to that point. You're doing things that cause health. You're not trying to fight an illness. You're not trying to fight against or deny anything. It's kind of like your emotions. You can't deny your emotions. You can't deny your symptoms. They're a dashboard. They're letting you know your status quo. They're letting you know your state of the union. Here's your state of the union. You feel crappy. You feel itchy. You feel tired and run down. Is that in alignment with your image? Oh, it's not? Okay, well then we're going to have to up level. We're going to have to set a new standard. The new standard is, I live feeling alive. I take vacations. I exercise because it feels good to me. I can see my body. I can see myself being strong and beautiful. Now you set that new standard. That's your image. That's your picture. What does a person do, act, think, behave that has this picture? Well, obviously, if they have this picture, they're probably going to say yes to going on that walk with that friend. They're going to not mope and sleep in. They're probably going to take an action that gets them to that picture. So it starts being less about a task list of all the things you have to do, and more about getting excited about all of the things I can do to get me towards this picture. Okay. Tying that back then to people pleasing. You have not allowed yourself to listen to what you want, because what everybody else wants has been so much more important. It drowns out the voice of your inner knowing. And it's okay to think about what others want, and it's okay to put others first. I get that idea. But putting others first comes from a place of solidarity, solidness, a wholeness, a completeness, a confidence in yourself. How can you truly put somebody else first when you don't have that for yourself? So it's not about being selfish. It's about claiming your birthright. I remember I had a client once, and if you're listening, hi, I'm using your phrase. She said it was her turn for selfish, spiteful self-care. I may have gotten that backwards. Spiteful, selfish self-care. And I challenged her on that because I love the term. I think it's super fun. But I challenged the term because I said it doesn't have to be spiteful, and it doesn't have to be selfish. It can be that you're just claiming your birthright. This is you. You have the power and the ability to be just as valuable as everybody else that has ever existed. And yes, you can still be humble at the same time. You can still have humility and understand that when you were born, they didn't separate the babies like, well, this one has value, this one has less value, this one has even less value. They didn't do that. At some point along your childhood, you claimed that. So let's go back to when you were first born, and everybody was like, oh, this baby, this pride, joy, she's perfect. That's your birthright. That's who you really are. So let's get back to that state. Okay. All right. If I didn't get to your question and it's still bugging you, please make sure you put it in the forms for next week. Have a fantastic Thanksgiving, and truly try not to look at it as another task. Truly take it as a time for, what am I grateful for now? And what am I looking forward to in my future? Thank you, everybody, for participating. We'll see you next week.